How do we arrive at form through color? This is a lifelong question for any artist to take up. If we have an idea of something that we want to paint, and we pre-plan the image that we want to have, is the image truly arising out of the colors themselves? If the colors each have a particular mood or gesture, and each relate to each other in different ways across the page, how can they aid us in creating a painting experience that aligns with the mood or gesture of the subject that we want to portray? So in beginning a painting on a particular subject, you want to ask yourself, what are the qualities of this image that I want to bring forth, and which colors best represent those qualities? We may not have the answer right away, and sometimes it may take a few tries to get it right. But the more we practice working with these artistic questions, the more we will strengthen our intuition and capacity for painting in this way. The Waldorf third grade curriculum typically begins its first week of school with Hebrew stories of the 7 days of creation. Creation stories from other cultures can be added or substituted as appropriate. In this particular painting, I am working with the creation of the fish of the sea and the birds of the air. I have chosen the ultramarine blue for the upper, more airy part of the painting, mostly because it is lighter. I have chosen the Prussian blue for the lower, more watery part of the painting because it is darker and therefore helpful in bringing depth to the ocean-like waters. Notice that I brought the first blue all the way down to the bottom, using loose and cloud-like brushstrokes. This is not so much to make it look like air or the sky, as it is meant to feel like it. When painting with the children, I wouldn't tell them what was coming, but would instead guide them into the airy movement of the blue, the feeling of the wind, and so on. Each of them will paint this differently in their own way out of themselves. Let the mood be the guiding force. I love to paint in layers, and I find it really helpful to bring the first color in a painting all the way across the page, wherever it is fitting. This allows the following colors to play with one another. It is the adult mind that creeps in and tries to tell us that we have to paint the sky and the ocean as we see it. This is a creation story, and you want the feeling of things being in movement and coming into being. If you have made it this far from grades 1 and 2 and have saved painting recognizable form until this very moment, you might hear a quiet little gasp and exclamation of, "It's a whale." Keep in mind, you can paint these forms even more simply than I have done here. I have sped up the painting time within the video for the sake of demonstration, but in real time, I'm allowing different areas of the page to dry a tiny bit. By painting one color all the way across, I've evened out the wetness in my very first steps. I could have also returned to the sky and painted a bird first. I've switched the positioning of the two blues to create contrast. The ultramarine is now the blue of the fish and the whale, and the Prussian is now becoming the birds. Although you see me fussing a little bit with the form of the bird, trying to get it just right for the sake of demonstration, I really should have just left it as it was. This is just another example of the adult mind creeping in and trying to get things just right. The most important thing is that the children have an experience, and time again, when you focus the most on this experiential part, you will create the most beautiful paintings. This next painting I'm going to show you is an example of something you could do for Noah's Ark. Now you could choose any scene or any part of the story that moves or inspires you to create an image. Let's say that we want to paint something at the end of this story, the arrival of the Ark. We may envision a beautiful rainbow high up in the sky with the land, water, and Ark below. How do we lay out this scene? Do we paint a rainbow with long, narrow stripes, a thin band far away in the distance? This might likely be our first impulse, to paint a rainbow exactly as we see it. So, what about the experience? Can you think back on a time when you saw the most incredible rainbow? There's nothing quite like that experience. The rainbow in its true glory is an intangible thing that moves us to a state of wonder. Remember that rainbow painting exercise for teachers in the previous demonstration? Here is an opportunity to bring something of that into the classroom. Make the color experience bold and beautiful. Let go of the rainbow needing to be true to size, so to speak. If I were to paint this exercise again, and I would likely do so if I was preparing to teach, I might try using the colors in a different order. The blue has now entered the page and is rising upwards in such a way that is reminiscent of the waters rising within the story. As the blue ascends, it meets the yellow and green begins to appear. Out of the meeting of these two colors coming together, the first sight of land appears. Through this color experience, we begin to arrive at form. The colors have hopefully inspired us in some way. One of the most helpful tools that I can think of is to keep an open yet playful state of mind. You can imagine you are interacting with someone who speaks a different language than you, yet somehow you are able to communicate through playful and joyful interaction. Now a tree has grown up out of the land. Again, push your colors around so that the forms expand out of themselves, as if from the inside out. Although it can be challenging at first to work in this way, in the end you will have a much greater sense of freedom and the opportunity to change things as you go. The moment you outline something, it becomes fixed upon the page. Allow the arc to come out of the colors, expanding and moving into its form. As you look around the room, you will have a wide variety of arc sizes. Some children will paint them small, and some will paint them much larger. Don't worry about the colors having to be true to life. The tree may grow up and meet the red of the sky and become a little bit more brown, but it is also fine as it is. The arc, depending on which red you use, will pick up some of the blue and be purplish or a little bit more brown. Here I'm taking some of the ultramarine and bringing a hint of the storms up in the sky that have now been swept aside. Finally, how would you create your own painting? What story speaks to you or inspires you? Choose a creation story from any cultural tradition that is meaningful or interesting to you, and attempt creating your own painting exercise. If you find yourself overwhelmed or becoming too focused on the tiny details, it may actually be helpful to limit your color palette to only 2 colors. Another option would be to use the rainbow exercise as a starting point, always beginning with the color experience first. Make sure you choose an image that truly inspires you.